There's a number I want you to hold in your mind before I say anything else. That number is 79%. Why is that number 79% important? Because according to Gallup's most recent State of the Global Workforce report, 79% of the global workforce is either not engaged or actively disengaged at work. Not 79% of frontline workers, not 79% of entry-level employees, 79% of the entire global workforce. And in the same data set, Gallup tells us that this level of disengagement is costing the world economy right now. It's costing the world economy $8.9 trillion annually in lost productivity. Now, here's the question that nobody in the boardroom, most people in the boardroom are not asking, and that is, if the strategy is sound, if the talent is there, if the systems are in place, why are nearly 8 out of every 10 people still showing up physically but checked out mentally? Why is that the case? And I will tell you exactly why. It is not a motivation problem. It is not a compensation problem. It is not even a culture problem in the way that most organizations define culture. So you might be wondering, what's the problem? It's a connection problem. What do I mean by a connection problem? First of all, understand that this connection problem starts at the top. Let me explain. Your leaders are talking. Your teams are not listening. Not because the teams are disrespectful of the leaders, not because they are lazy or the leaders are lazy, but because nobody has taught your leaders the difference between communicating and connecting. And those two things are separated by a gap that is so wide that in most organizations, the two are not even living in the same continent. So wide, they're not in the same. People think they're communicating, they never connect. I have sat inside leadership teams across different continents: financial services, professional services, technology, infrastructure, government, and the pattern is almost always the same. You have leaders who are genuinely knowledgeable, leaders who prepare thoroughly, leaders who believe sincerely in what they are saying. And yet, the moment they walk into the room, something invisible shuts down. The information goes out and nothing comes back. No energy, no buying, no discretionary effort, just compliance. Just people waiting for the meeting to end so that they can go about their life. That is what a communication without connection environment looks like. You say things, people just listen to you and they go off. And it is costing you far more than Gallup's numbers will even fully capture. But many times we do not see this gap and what it's costing the organization. Let me make this really clear. Imagine a technology firm, mid-sized, high-growth ambitions, and exceptionally credentialed leadership team. They bring in a new head of operations to lead a critical transformation program. 18 months into the program, significant investment. The mandate is simple: to modernize the delivery infrastructure and bring 3 fragmented divisions into a unified operating system. So picture this scenario that I'm just painting now. The new leader is thorough. Every stakeholder meeting is well prepared for. Every update is structured. Every communication follows the correct format, the correct framework. The slide decks are excellent. The logic is irrefutable. So he's got 18 months to do this. So she's got 18 months. 12 months in the program, and the program is behind. Not catastrophically, but consistently. Every milestone is delivered late by just enough to never trigger an escalation, but enough to make the cumulative delay compound. The program manager then flags this out, the steering committee reviews it, and the diagnosis that comes back is that the teams are not moving with urgency. So in that case, what does the organization do? What does the steering committee do in that case? What the steering committee misses, or what almost every steering committee in this situation tend to miss, is that the teams are not moving with urgency because they do not feel connected to the purpose. They do not feel connected to the leader. They do not feel connected to each other. They are simply following instructions. They are not following the person. And those two things produce completely different levels of performance. So check inwards what's happening in your organization as you follow this story. The head of operations has communicated everything and connected with almost nothing. Communicated everything, connected with nothing. This is not a character indict. This is a wiring gap. and it has a specific documented research case. John Maxwell writes that connecting is the ability to identify with people and to relate to them in a way that increases your influence with them. Not your authority. In this case, we're not talking not your authority, not your position, not your logic, your influence. Because at the end of the day, leadership is influence. And influence, real influence, it kind of makes people move voluntarily, move with energy because they genuinely want to, is only ever built through connection and not through communication. That's why you can be an excellent communicator but a terrible connector, and that impacts your organization, whether you see it or not. Now, Maxwell goes further. He says that your ability to communicate and connect with others is a major determining factor in reaching your potential. Not a helpful add-on, it's a major determining factor. And Harvard Business Review identifies the ability to communicate effectively, which in Maxwell's framework means to connect, as the number one criterion for professional advancement and promotion. So if you're looking to grow in your organization, don't just think about communicating, think more about connecting. Now, I want to bring in a second dimension because connection is not a single axis capability. It's a whole brain function. And understanding these changes how you develop your leaders. Valen Asimov's framework of the 4 business intelligences gives us a map of the full operating spectrum of a high-performing leader. And here is what that framework reveals about connection specifically. You see, a leader who is strong in analytical processing, underdeveloped in mastermind intelligence, their ability to engage the collective thinking and the energy of the people around them will consistently produce exactly the pattern that I described a moment ago. And what did I describe a moment ago? Sound logic, no movement. Because mastermind intelligence is not about brainstorming sessions. It's not about retreats. It's about a leader's daily capacity to make the people around them feel seen, feel valued, that their thinking really matters, their presence is valued, and their contribution is seen. Now, when that is missing, and in most organizations, it is missing in the moments that really do count, you get exactly what Gallup is measuring. People who are physically present and psychologically absent. Here's the painful truth. Most leaders who fail to connect are not failing because they do not care. That's not the case. They are failing because their internal self-image as a communicator, the stored subconscious picture that they carry of themselves and the act of leading people, is one that prioritizes being right over being heard. It prioritizes information transfer over human resonance. And that self-image governs their automatic behavior in every room that they walk into, regardless of their intention. This is why you can send a leader on a communication program, a leadership program, and 3 months later they are back in the same patterns. The workshop changed their information, gave them more information. It did not change their self-image of what they look like when they connect with another human being. And so under the pressure of a real organization moving in real speed, real life situations, the creative subconscious restores the default every time. That's why you need to think about changing the creative subconscious. So what does this really look like when it is addressed? What does a leader who is genuinely wired for connection do differently? Maxwell maps this with precision. He says that when he interacts with people one-on-one in a group with an audience, he knows he has connected when he senses specific signals. Extra effort, unsolicited appreciation, unguarded openness, increased communication, positive energy, growing synergy. When these things happen in your team without you asking for them to happen, then you're connecting with your team. Now, these are not feelings. They are behaviors, and you can see them. They are behavioral output of a team that is led by someone who has stopped communicating at them and started connecting with them. These are measurable behaviors. They're visible. You can see them. So it's easy to know if you're connecting with your team or not. So here's what you do this week. 3 actions, specific and executable. Action number 1. Before your next significant communication, whether it's a team briefing or a stakeholder update or one-to-one with a direct report, spend 5 minutes asking yourself a single question. What does this person or group need to feel before they can receive what I'm about to say? Not what do they need to know, what do they need to feel? That 5 minute investment will restructure the entire communication that follows because it then forces you out of your own agenda into theirs. That's a more important thing. Don't go into a meeting with just your agenda. Think about the other person. Second, identify the leader on your team who generates the most technically accurate communication and the least genuine engagement from their audience. Now, when you identify that, do not give them more communication skills training. What you need to do is have a direct conversation with them about the 3 questions that every person in every audience is asking subconsciously of the communicator in front of them. Those questions are: 1, do you care about me? 2, can you help me? 3, can I trust you? If that leader cannot answer yes to all 3 of those questions from the perspective of their audience, no amount of structural communication will. Because people do not follow logic. They follow leaders they trust. And trust is a product of connection, not information. Number 3, very important. Look at how behavioral style differences are affecting connection in your teams, because every person in your organization has a dominant way they prefer to process information, make decisions, express urgency, and respond to pressure. When a leader communicates without awareness of those patterns, they generate friction that they cannot see. This is not a personality conflict. This is a wiring mismatch, and it is one of the most preventable sources of disengagement in any organization. So I want to close this video with the sharpest version of the question that this data raises. 79% of your workforce is not connected, and the Gallup data tells us clearly that the single variable most predictive of team engagement is the manager. It's not the strategy, not the perks, not the mission statement, the manager. What does this mean? This means the disengagement in your organization is at least in significant part a leadership connection. The question then is, that I want to leave you with, is not how do you fix this at scale. The question is, where in your own leadership is the gap between what you communicate and what actually lands? Where do you walk out of the room having delivered a technically excellent message that nobody felt? That's a question I need you to ponder over. And while you're doing that, drop that in the comment, whatever you come up with, and tell me what the context is. And let's keep having this conversation. Your next conversation might be the one that will change your career or change your leadership style. My name is Stallone-Obaraemi. My sincere desire for you, my friend, is that you go on succeeding by becoming a better version of yourself. Bye for now.